Next, we're going to hear from Ian Nock. He's the chair of the Ultra HD Forum Interop Working Group. I'm sure most of you know him anyway. He's also founder and principal consultant at Fairmile West. And he is going to give us his 11 key thoughts on the move to IP, i.e. moving the focus from efficiency to effectiveness.
Thank you very much. Right, so first things first. I'm Ian Nock, of course, as you've heard. Fairmile West, we consult with a variety of different clients on the product, technology, strategy and delivery world. We've done a number of pieces of work with clients in and around delivering that shift towards IP. And what I was coming here today with was my 11 key thoughts in the vein of a listicle, if those of you know BuzzFeed and things like that. Some of those key thoughts that we've come up with over the time we've been doing those pieces of work. First things first then, the move to IP that we're talking about here is the move of what we would call full service video entertainment. It's not just the SVOD piece, although a lot of the thoughts can actually also apply to those. The key thing to really think about, and it came up in one of the earlier presentations in the main theatre, about broadcast and about whether the move from broadcast to IP is really happening. And I think really what we want to say here is it is, and it is because of the fact that customers don't buy efficient. They buy effective. They want to have their content when they want it, where they want it, and how they want it. And really, broadcast technologies don't really provide that capability. That's why we've had a growth in so many IP services over the last 10 to 15 years, and it is because it meets the customer demand, and that transition will take place. Of course, there are always going to be people who talk about, oh, broadcast will not go away, etc. But the key thought there is, it's pretty much like the drive from petrol engine cars to electric cars. It's not about if, it's about when. Because at the end of the day, that transition needs to actually go forward with the new vehicle, and that's what IP video delivery really gives you. Okay, so another quick thing as well, why 11 thoughts? Well, of course, for those of you who know Spinal Tap, 11's always better than 10. Okay, so first thought, video quality. Of course, the key one is that just because it's over IP doesn't mean it's poorer quality. In fact, normally it will be better quality than what you'll achieve through broadcast. If you look at broadcast platforms today, there are many platforms with large amounts of SD content. On the OTT side of things, you don't really see that much SD content. In fact, you see a growth of HD and 4K content, much more so than you do on broadcast platforms. So that is a key thought to have around that transition to IP. Video quality is important. It is actually one of the reasons, one of the comfort factors that customers are seeing that as a great part of the product. So you've got to make sure it is delivered in great quality. Networks. Of course, this is the key one. Oh God, my network's going to fall apart if I go to all IP. Not necessarily true, not if you plan well. Also, there are those people who see this as a way of going off their network, expanding way beyond what they can actually normally cover. And of course, Netflix have really done this over the years. They've grown to a worldwide operator for SVOD on other people's networks. But that doesn't mean that you can just ignore the network. You have to think. You have to actually put the technology in place, the right CDN, the right caching, the right layout of that caching into the networks where your customers are, as well as thinking about where it is your own network, about how you make sure that network, that IP network, transitions from being intermittent track data delivery to continuous data delivery. And that's an important point. Especially today, you talk about operators in the UK and in many other countries around the world selling gigabit level services, but at the same time, in the same press releases, actually making big about the fact that they manage 3 megabits per second per subscriber. So in actual fact, I wouldn't say a network issue is really a video over IP issue. It's more probably a problem for those people who are selling gigabit Ethernet today, or gigabit internet connections, when they're only sizing their networks to cover less than 3% of what they're actually selling to the customer. And I think that's a bigger question for all of us. Another thought, peak traffic goes into the whole data networking side of the network. the live event. That's what people are scared of. How can we manage delivering that live event over IP, over ABR delivery? Well, that's probably not the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is when the customers are choosing multiple different content forms to actually deliver. At least with the live event, you're talking about a single stream delivery to your edge, which is then delivered to multiple clients around your entire customer base. So the manageability of the center part is actually pretty good compared to the edge. But if you've got actually people watching a multiplicity of different content, then obviously you've got a lot more data generated in your center part of your network, and you've got to manage that. So there's a lot of things to think about on peak traffic, but it isn't always the obvious that it's about the live event. Latency, this is the other one. This is the, oh gosh, I've heard my neighbors shouting goal 3 seconds or 5 seconds or even 45 seconds before I have even seen it. This is a key thing that has to be solved. But the important thing about this is that it's not about achieving sub-second latency. It's about achieving something equivalent to the latencies we have already with digital TV platforms. That's getting below that 3 or 4 seconds latency. And it's also not just about the hearing of the goal from your next door neighbor. Actually, if you can hear goal shouted by your next door neighbor, you should probably look at your installation. It's really about the social media problem, that people who are at the match are going to be posting goal. And you're also looking at the social media while you're watching it on TV, and you'll see that quite a number of seconds before you'll actually see it on many IP platforms today. But there are actually solutions out there. But one thing I note is that people really need to think about the standardized solutions more than the proprietary ones, because at the end of the day, we don't have just one device in the home. We have multiple different devices. And your solution for low latency has got to cover all the different devices you cover in your app, and it's got to actually do it in a way that if I'm watching it in the front room, on one television, that my son upstairs doesn't shout goal before I do, okay, on his other device. The other issue we've got as well is a consistency problem. It's not just about the fact that it's 45 seconds delayed to live or 10 seconds delayed to live. It's the fact that on device 1, it's 45 seconds delayed. On device 2, it's 15 seconds delayed. And on device 3, it's 25 seconds delayed. And if all those devices are in the home, I'm getting a multiplicity of different noises going on in my home, all of which are out of joint with each other. Okay, so they've all got to be delivered at pretty much the same time point as well, so that you have that constant experience. Because, of course, the flippant answer to latency is, oh, but we'll turn off broadcast anyway, so everyone will be watching on IP. But that consistency issue remains. Next. Simplification of clients. This is interesting. In actual fact, if you remember back to the old days, big old nasty set-top boxes developed at great expense by a variety of different companies to the specific needs of a particular operator. Excuse me a second. And that's a very complicated device. And there was only one in the home. But what's happened over the last 20 years is that technologies have standardized, devices have standardized, and now we've moved up the stack quite a way, such that now the key differentiator is what's happening in the UI, not on the device itself. And those devices, particularly with IP delivery, don't need to have tuners, multiple tuners, tuner management. They don't need to have hard drives, because all of that content can be provided via the cloud solutions that you've got for your video delivery. And therefore, your clients can be really small, really lightweight, maybe a little bit more powerful to drive those UIs that you want to have, but still a much simpler device than you have in the old world. And that's what IP delivery gives you. Okay. Next one. It also means that we've got bring your own device. Hey, you don't have to invest all that money to develop those set-top boxes and sell, basically provide those to your customers. You could actually allow them to bring their own devices if they so wish. And that's one of the key factors that the move to IP delivery has brought, because you don't have tuner requirements, you don't have proprietary technologies, you don't have conditional access systems, you have pretty much standardized DRM, standardized client applications running on top of a software stack that pretty much is very similar on all the devices. In fact, you can even run the same UI on all those devices if you wish. But this is the key thing. Bring your own device is a big change. But it doesn't mean that you get away with not making your own device. For some customers, you will have to still provide your own device. Here's another challenging statement. Everything's on demand, isn't it? Not really, not yet. But the thing that's happening here, of course, is that you're getting consumers moving from the current scheduled world, where EastEnders is on at 8 o'clock in the evening, to where the customer knows it's on vaguely on at 8 o'clock, and they'll start watching it when they get there 2, 3, 4 minutes later. And that actually is driving all those linear streams to being all on demand. And that is part of this move of consumption models away from linear really being the key thing that is part of the customer experience. Ultimately, in the end, convenience matters. Okay, this is a real techie one. If you were putting together a TV platform to deliver your solution out there, probably one of the worst mistakes you can have is to actually choose a solution that does everything from one supplier. Because actually you want to choose best of breed platform technology components. You want to look at the strength of the APIs between those technology components as one of the key things that you want to deliver as part of your IP platform. And you really want to think about commoditizing every component you can get, because that way it will actually provide you with the lowest cost, best service provision that you can get in the long run. Sorry to the vendors of TV platforms in the room. Next, as the previous speaker said, data. In fact, I originally titled this, data, 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 data. It's all about data. But it's also about the fact that when you're putting your service out there on all these IP networks, you've got to manage that you are getting the best experience on those video streams. So you need data from every part of the network, every part of the platform, and the client device. And it's so important that you have that in there. Quality of experience is one of the key things you get. Okay? And it's also what makes satellite, IP delivery better than satellite, because with satellite, you couldn't manage if the quality was bad, because actually you couldn't control the weather. When it rained, you got no picture. Okay. The other key thing, partners. What you'll learn in the delivery of IP, everybody has to be your partner, because otherwise everything's not going to work very well. You need content partners who are going to work with you to position the content in your UI the way that is the best for the customers to consume, and not to limit what you can do there. You want content that is provided by platforms that has catch-up, so you could start playing back that particular live event a minute after it started transmitting if you wanted to. Those are key partners you need to have. But those partners also extend to every device manufacturer, TV manufacturer, and consumer device manufacturer in the world. And you need really good partners, and you really need to build those connections to make the best of everything with IP. Next one. This is the final one, number 11, the best for last. Sustainability. You could actually instigate better and better codecs to more and more compress the video so it uses less and less bandwidth, in a view that actually gives you less power usage and less impact on the environment. But actually, you're just shifting the balance so that all that energy goes into creating those encoded streams. And the key thing here is you've got to think holistically about the entire end-to-end platform, about what your gains and what your losses are with regard to sustainability and environmental impact. Because, of course, one of the key areas where you gain significantly is with much simpler devices. They use a lot less power. Modern IP-based devices are using a few watts, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 watts. But those set-top boxes, even from 5 years ago, use between 30 and 60 watts. And that's a key driver. And of course, it's largely driven by the fact that you don't have to have a hard drive at the end of the day. That's a huge cost impact. But those are the key 11 thoughts. Questions? By the way, there are other thoughts as well, but just so you let know, there isn't just 11.
Aaron Briggs. Ian, when are we going to be in a position where there is going to be cloud in the UK anyway, cloud DVR?
I think it's partly starting. We've had that religious change in many of their public broadcasters, that they've got a semblance of acceptance. However, they want it on their terms. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, but what's forcing that? Yeah, we've been talking about it for 10 years, and still it's not fully there, right? That's the issue.
I would ask Virgin and I would ask Sky how they managed to get IP delivery of their BBC channel.
Thank you for saying that.
But it's a good start. That's about the flexibility of partners. Your partners have to be willing to give you what you want and what you need to give the best customer experience.
Right, thank you, Ian, fantastic.
That's all right. Thank you.